Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show on Reason and Theology. Just great news today coming out of the Vatican. It has broken its silence, and Cardinal Fernandez has given an interview to the Pillar on the issue involving the new blessings document from the Vatican. I mean, as you know, controversy, massive controversy, has erupted in the church. And some people are very confused, and they now think that the church now has gay weddings, or that the church now blesses same-sex unions, and it's simply not the case. And Cardinal Fernandez offers some excellent clarification. Not that clarification of the document was needed. Rather, clarification was needed because many people did not read the document and created an artificial controversy and created a great deal of confusion in the minds of other people. And so, because people did not read the document, or some twisted it and others disregarded it, a great deal of confusion was created. So, further clarity has been offered by the Vatican. And I want to go through this with y'all because it is incredibly helpful. And it's a good day also for faithful Catholics, because sneak peek, faithful Catholics, those of you who have been saying, no, he is not, and the Vatican is not referring to blessings of same-sex unions. It's not referring to blessing of sin. The church cannot bless sin. Those of you faithful Catholics who have said it is referring to blessing of persons, not the union, you're today once again vindicated. So hold your head high. All of those people, in fact, probably the majority of people, were saying the opposite, often because they didn't read the document and they were just going with what the news said. And they probably gaslighted you and called you names and all sorts of things. Well, guess what? You've been vindicated once again. So thank you for remaining steadfast and speaking the truth in the midst of so many people who are promoting dissent and confusion. All right, well, let's take a look at the interview. Let's read the whole thing. Very, very helpful. Answers a wide range of questions. Oh, let me remind y'all, hit that subscribe button. Help me grow Reason and Theology so I can reach more people, new people who haven't heard about the show and probably haven't heard a balanced and reasonable take about the situation in the Catholic Church today. As you know, many people are confused. There's a massive crisis, and people are in need of some guidance. And I attempt to offer some here and clarity in the content. So if you want to see more people reached with this content here on Reason and Theology, I need you to do your part. Hit that subscribe button, because that not only keeps you in touch with the channel, it also helps the channel reach new people. Okay, let's begin here, sharing my screen, and let's take a look at the article together. Okay, Cardinal Fernandez, same-sex blessing does not validate or justify anything. The interview begins here. Cardinal Fernandez, Fiducia Supplicans, that's the new document, says that it remains firm on the traditional doctrine of the church about marriage, not allowing any type of liturgical rite or blessing similar to a liturgical rite that can create confusion. It also states that the blessings it discusses should not be fixed ritually by ecclesial authorities to avoid producing confusion with the blessing proper to the sacrament of marriage, and that these non-ritualized blessings never cease being simple gestures that provide an effective means of increasing trust in God. So it's not a blessing of approval. That's sometimes what we mean by blessing, that God somehow approves of this thing. No, it's an request to live a holier life, to trust in God. It also, in the document, it says it is an urging to follow God's commands. So don't listen to people who say it does not contain a message of repentance. A means of increasing trust in God on the part of the people who ask for them, careful that they should not become a liturgical or semi-liturgical act similar to a sacrament. But various bishops' conferences have approved rituals for blessing couples in irregular situations. Does that contradict the declaration? That's in reference to the German bishops, of course. The declaration is very clear in distinguishing the two forms of blessing, one with a liturgical ritual format, and the other proposal to pastoral work. This is its specific contribution. Some episcopates had advanced in ritualized forms of blessing irregular couples, and this is inadmissible. So, what the German bishops are doing is inadmissible. They should reformulate their proposal in that regard. Fiducia Supplicans says that in a brief prayer preceding this spontaneous blessing, the ordained minister could ask that the individuals have peace, health, a spirit of patience, dialogue, and mutual assistance, but also God's light and strength to be able to fulfill his will completely. And obviously, God's will includes turning away from sin. It adds that these forms of blessing express a supplication that God may grant those aids that come from the impulses of his spirit, what classical theology calls actual grace, so that human relationships may mature and grow in fidelity to the gospel, that they may be freed from their imperfections and frailties, that is, free from sin, that these relationships would be free from sin, and that they may express themselves in the ever increasing dimension of the divine love. That's what we would call a holy friendship, right? Do those passages mean that the primary motivation for giving such a blessing has to be that the couple in an irregular situation conform their lives to the moral and doctrinal teachings of the church? Now he says these kinds of blessings are simply simple pastoral channels that help to express people's faith, even if those people are great sinners. Therefore, by giving this blessing to two people who spontaneously come forward to request it, one can legitimately ask God to grant them health, peace, prosperity, the things that we all ask for and that a sinner can also ask for. At the same time, since one can think that in the daily lives of these two persons, not everything is sin, one can therefore pray for them to receive a spirit of dialogue, patience, and mutual help. Think of it like this: some of their acts towards one another are sinful, some of their acts towards one another are good. The acts are not the object of the blessing, the person is the object of the blessing. But any good that is there, any mutual help, any good gestures towards one another, that would be, of course, enhanced. And that everything that is sinful there, that they would be freed from those bonds. But the declaration also mentions a request for help from the Holy Spirit, so that this relationship is often, which is often unknown to the priest, may be purified of everything that does not respond to the gospel and the will of God, and may mature along the lines of God's plan. You hear that? The purpose of the blessing is not an approval of the relationship. It is to help them stop sinning against each other so that they're conformed to the will of God and purified of everything that is sinful and does not correspond to the will of God. As I was saying, sometimes the priest on a pilgrimage does not know that couple, and sometimes they are two very close friends who share good things. Sometimes they had sexual relations in the past, and now what remains is a strong sense of belonging and mutual help. This sounds like he's referring to holy friendships where people are now chaste. They are no longer sinning against each other, but they have a friendship. As a parish priest, I've often met such couples who are sometimes exemplary. Yes, yes. There are people who used to be in a sexual relationship and they stopped sinning against each other and they just simply became friends and they no longer engage in sin towards one another. That is proof that the church can help such people to turn away from sin and to have a holy friendship. Therefore, since it is not a question of the sacrament of confession, but of a simple blessing, it is still asked that this friendship be purified, matured, and lived in fidelity to the gospel. Yes. What is the only kind of friendship that you can have between two people of the same sex? A chaste friendship, one that is pure, immature, and faithful to God in the gospel. Anything short of that, we need to make some changes. We need to repent. And even if there was some kind of sexual relationship, known or not, the blessing made in this way does not validate or justify anything. So again, the blessing is not an approval. Rather, it is a invocation of God's help to receive grace to live a holier life. This does not validate anything. Actually, the same thing happens when individuals are blessed, because that individual who asks for a blessing, not absolution, may be a great sinner, but we do not deny a blessing to him. So, whenever two people who are attracted to each other and they are of the same sex and they request this blessing, the blessing is for them in the exact same way that when we bless individuals, it's not absolution, but it is again a blessing for that person to live a holier life. And so it is in this case when the couple comes and requests this blessing. It's not an approval of any acts that they've done. It's certainly not an approval of any disordered union that they may have, but rather it is a blessing for them as persons. But clearly, we have to grow in the conviction that non ritualized blessings are not a consecration of the person. They're not a justification of all his actions. They're not a ratification of the life he leads. No, no. I do not know at what point we have so exalted this simple pastoral gesture that we have equated it with the reception of the Eucharist. This is why we want to set so many conditions for blessings. I love this. This is hilarious. He's saying, why are you guys putting so many conditions on just a simple blessing? What's going on here? Do you think that this is the same as receiving the Eucharist or something? That I love the way he approaches this, and he just flat out says, yeah, this is kind of ridiculous. People are being a little absurd. The statement says that beyond the guidance it provides, no further responses should be expected about possible ways to regulate details or practicalities regarding blessings of this type. Does that mean that there will not be any response or reprimand to episcopal conferences or dioceses which seek to regulate and ritualize these blessings, or to those which seek to prohibit them altogether? So the question is, hey, does this mean that there's not going to be any discipline for people who do things that violate the document? He says no. It means that one should not expect a manual, a vademecum, or a guide for something so simple. I love how he just states the obvious, right? If we just read the document, it's pretty straightforward what it means. I know that in some dioceses, bishops in the past have established guidelines for these cases. For example, some have indicated to priests that when it is a matter of a couple well known in the place, or in cases where there could be some scandal, the blessing should be given in private, in a discreet place. But this declaration did not want to go into details or replace the local discernment of the bishops. So bishops really need to discern that, given the case-by-case situation. On the other hand, trying to interpret your question, we are currently discussing these issues with the presidents of bishops' conferences and with groups of bishops visiting the dicasteries. Now listen to this. I love this. Soon, a group of dicastery prefects will begin a journey of conversion and deepening with the German bishops. We will make all the necessary clarifications. I love this. So this should remind you of what we saw not long ago, and that is when the news broke that the German bishops are going to be meeting in Rome about 3 different times with various heads of dicasteries, and they're going to be told what you can and can't do. So they're reining the German bishops in, and he himself is going to go to Germany and talk to the German bishops. Look at this. He says, moreover, I'm planning a trip to Germany to have some conversations that I believe are important. I love that. The declaration appeals to the practical and prudent and fatherly discernment of priests to impart these blessings. Does that approach diminish the authority of bishops to govern their dioceses? As follows from the ecclesiology of the Second Vatican Council, especially its emphasis on the authority of diocesan bishops. Are the bishops who have prohibited these blessings in their territories directly contradicting the declaration? Oh, good question. Very good question. Each local bishop, by his own munus, his own office, has always had the function of discernment in his local territory, in that very concrete place that he knows more than others because it is his flock. So the bishop ultimately has discernment on how to implement this in his diocese because he knows his flock. We do not speak of the national bishops' conferences, and even less of the continental ones, because they cannot impose things to the bishops in their dioceses, right? Even if they can unify criteria through like a unanimous vote or something, they cannot replace the unique place of the bishop incarnated in his local church. So ultimately, the bishop is responsible for his own territory and for the implementation of this document as he discerns. But we are in the Catholic Church, and there the gospel shows us Peter. In other words, we have a pope. Obviously, when there is a text signed by the pope, in order to interpret it broadly, the bishops must first study it in depth and without haste. Ooh, yeah, that's a little jab at some of the bishops who too quickly came out and took a critical stance. They need to study it in depth and without haste, and allow themselves to be enlightened and enriched by that text. Yes. Therefore, prudence and attention to local culture could admit different ways of application, but not a total denial of this step being asked of priests. You can't totally deny this. So those who have come out and totally denied it, yeah, you can't do that. And I suspect they're going to be having conversations with the Holy See, or rather, the Holy See is going to be having conversations with them. But different ways of application, sure. There can be different ways of application due to circumstances. He says, I will understand the concerns of the bishops in some African or Asian countries, in some places where being gay might put you in prison. It is an affront to human dignity that certainly distresses the bishops and challenges them in their fatherhood. It is likely that the bishops do not want to expose homosexual persons to violence. They themselves refer to the legislation of their countries. What is important is that these bishop conferences are not holding a doctrine different from that of the declaration signed by the Pope. So they're not saying, hey, this document of the Pope teaches a different doctrine and we don't hold to that doctrine. No, because it is the same doctrine as always. But rather, they state the need for study and discernment in order to act with pastoral prudence in this context. I cannot say more than this because I recognize that the reception of these documents requires time, not something that you can just immediately reject in a day. In a serene and prolonged reflection, again, a passive rebuke at those who offered knee-jerk reactions that were critical. Now, this next part, he is asked about the interpretation of the document that I've been putting forward. I'm, of course, not mentioned by name here, but this is exactly what I have been putting forward. One interpretation that has been given to the declaration is that the blessings would be imparted on persons and not on their union specifically. That is identical to what I have been saying for quite some time now. In fact, I'll point you to the videos where I initially addressed these things. In one particular case, here's the highlight clip. It's called "But the Gay Blessings Document Says Couples." That's the highlight clip, and it is based on a longer video that I did the day after of the release of the document, which can be found here. It is called "Pope Blesses Gay Couples, the Truth of the New Vatican Document," and I also have a whole bunch of shorts that I created. So I've been putting forward the view that when the document refers to couples, it is not referring to blessing of their union. It is referring to blessing of the persons of the couple. And that is very manifestly clear by just reading paragraph 31 and also read paragraph 5. But then the interviewer says, however, the document clearly speaks in its third part of blessing couples. There you go, right? What's been thrown in my face nonstop. I say, hey, it's talking about blessing persons, not the union. And then everybody comes back and says, but it says couples. Right. I can read. I'm aware that it says couples, but you're equivocating on the term couple in the wrong way. Couples can be understood to mean two things: the blessing of the individuals of the couple, the persons of the couple, or the blessing of the union of the couple. And the context was, it was the blessing of the persons, not the union. Okay, so he straight up asked about what I've been saying here. All right, here's the moment of truth. Does this imply that the irregular union of these persons is being blessed? He says it is necessary to distinguish well. And the declaration makes this distinction. Oh, guess who likes to talk about distinctions? Yours truly, right? Nuance, distinctions. That's what I'm known for. Now, here it is. Couples are blessed. The union is not blessed. Thank you. Thank you, Cardinal Fernandez. Absolutely 100% confirms what I've been saying. Couples here is in reference to the persons of the couple, not the union itself, not the relationship. Couples are blessed. Persons are blessed. In this case, two persons that are in a disordered union. However, the union is not blessed. So don't throw in my face, but it says couples. Right. What does that mean, though? It means the persons. Couple means two people or two things, right? Couples are blessed. The union is not blessed for the reasons that the declaration repeatedly explains about the true meaning of Christian marriage and sexual relations. Those of y'all faithful Catholics who have been standing firm against the people who call you a gaslighter and a pope splainer, those of y'all who have been fighting people in the comment section and all that, and helping family and friends and just pointing to the fact that no, it's referring to persons, not the union. Hold your head high. You've been vindicated. And everybody who tried to throw in your face, but it says couples, as if to suggest that somehow that's a blessing of sin or this sinful union, you were right. And they owe the Holy Father an apology, because I would say probably the majority of critics of the document were putting forward this false claim and attempting to throw this in the Holy Father's face and then slandering anybody who defended the Holy Father. So I do think that they owe a retraction and an apology to the Holy Father. We'll see if that comes, though. I doubt very seriously from the reactions I've already seen. For those who read the text serenely and without ideological prejudices, I love that. I love that, because the majority of the critics are reading it with ideological prejudices. Their hatred for Pope Francis or their suspicion of the Holy See or their lack of confidence in the magisterium, or they're concerned that the church is woke, and so on and so forth. I can list a whole bunch of them, but there's plenty of them. And they approach the document with this hermeneutic of suspicion, with their ideology glasses on, and they can't read anything as it actually is because they have these blinders on. They have these glasses on that colors and distorts everything that they read, no matter how clear it is. It says, for those who read the text serenely and without ideological prejudices, it is clear that there is no change in the doctrine on marriage and on the objective valuation of sexual acts outside the only kind of marriage which exists, male and female, exclusive, indissoluble, naturally open to the generation of new life. He says, but this does not prevent us from making a gesture of paternity and closeness. Otherwise, we can become judges who condemn from a pedestal. When we consecrated men have much that humiliates us as a church, we have given serious scandal to the simple ones with our behavior. Besides, we all have our personal faults. We are not fully coherent with the whole gospel. And our lapidary judgments sometimes do not take into account that the same measure we use for others will be used with us. I, who want to go to heaven and be very happy with God eternally, try not to forget this warning of Jesus Christ. Amen. Which is what I've been saying when I've been noting to the critics, stop worrying about the sexual sins of other people and worry about your own slander. Worry about your own dissent. Because again, the popes have said, this is grave matter. What you're doing is gravely immoral. Grave guilt is the words of Pope Pius X. When you dissent against the magisterium in the way that people are doing in public, worry about your own sins. Because your own sin will send you to hell, just as homosexuality and homosexual acts will send a person to hell. Stop worrying about the sexual sins of others and worry about your own sins. Address your own issues first. Maybe then you'll be in a better position to then critique others. So I appreciate the gentle way in which he effectively rebuked the critics. I really appreciate that. This was an incredibly insightful interview. Again, not that it was really even needed, because again, the document itself was clear. The problem is the critics tend to not read the document. They just repeat what they hear in the media. Or if they do read it, they don't read it unbiasedly. They read it with this massive bias of this hermeneutic of suspicion, looking for something in there that just has to be wrong because you distrust the church's teaching authority and you believe it's trying to deceive. So you look for something to nitpick. And that's the wrong approach. The approach that we have to have when it comes to the magisterium is one of docility, an ability of being able to learn, one of a student, not a teacher, not a judge. We don't judge and teach the magisterium, it teaches us. One of docility, one of humility. That is the approach that we are to have. Sincerely trying to understand the document, seeking clarification if there are any points of lack of clarity on our part. Seeking to have our questions answered, sure, but never approaching the magisterium as if somehow we are the teachers and it is the student, or somehow it is trying to impose sin on us and is trying to deceive us. If you really believe that about the magisterium, I don't know how you're going to be Catholic for very long. Why would you stick around for such an abusive teaching authority that is trying to deceive you? Why would you stick around for that? How can you believe that this is the voice of Christ teaching in its teaching authority, which is what the Catholic Church teaches? How can you believe that if you believe that this is, in fact, the voice of Satan trying to deceive you? It's only a matter of time before you look for something else. So, faithful Catholics, thank y'all so much for defending the faith hard. I know it's been a rough few days here, but you've been vindicated. Go ahead and enjoy the fact that, once again, those who stood with the magisterium were vindicated, and those who dissented against it are shown to be dissenters. And if you think about it, what this controversy has done more than others, more than any others in this pontificate, is it has shown those who follow the magisterium and are faithful versus those who dissent against it and unduly criticize it and rashly judge it. It shows you a line that is clearly divided two groups of Catholics. One, again, is the faithful group of Catholics who rightly approach the magisterium with docility. Another is your proto-Protestants or your neo-Protestants who have this view that I get to sit in judgment of the magisterium. It's a non-Catholic approach to the magisterium. And we're seeing that now more than ever. Dan says, Pope Splainer's vindicated. Yeah, there you go. Oh, since we're talking about Pope Splainers, hold on. Let me grab that. There you go. Your Pope Splainer t-shirt. Get it from reasonmerch.com. I will gladly be a Pope Splainer instead of a sin splainer, instead of a schism splainer, instead of a dissent splainer, instead of a Pope blamer, instead of a devil splainer, instead of a Satan splainer, whatever you want to call it. I will gladly be a Pope splainer instead of the opposite. Dissent splainer? Schism splainer? Of course, you need to be a Pope splainer. That's the duty of every faithful Catholic. They have a duty to explain the magisterium in a way that harmonizes what it teaches with what it's taught in the past. That's your duty. That's not a negotiable. That's not an option. That's part of your duty as a Catholic. And if you're not doing that, are you really Catholic? Or have you not adopted a Protestant approach? Are you not now conceding ground to Satan? Are you not now doing the devil's work? That's why I call it devil splaining, or Satan splaining, or schism splaining, or dissent splaining, or Pope blaming, Pope slandering. Get your Pope Splainer tee, reasonmerch.com. Hey, hit that subscribe button, because clearly you see what I have been saying, despite the vast majority of people out there saying otherwise. What I've been saying was what the document says all along. And this isn't the first time that what I've been saying, despite what most Catholic media and Catholic figureheads have been saying, this isn't the first time what I've been saying has been vindicated. This is what, maybe the fifth time now since Fernandez has come around? Probably, I think about the fifth time. That should go to show you, stop listening to these Catholic voices that are stirring up dissent and engaging in fear-mongering. They're gaslighting you. They're lying to you. They're deceiving you, or they are sincerely confused themselves and they're just disseminating that confusion. It's one of the above. Stop listening to those voices who peddle fear and peddle slander, and start going to others. Father Mark Goring gave a great take on this. Start listening to others who are taking a balanced approach and reading things with a hermeneutic of continuity, and not one of suspicion, but one of trust and docility. Starting listening to those people. And I honestly think that some of that fear that you've probably been going through, some of that confusion that you currently might have, a lot of that will go away when you stop listening to the dissenters who have been proven to be wrong over and over and over and over. Again, hit that subscribe button. Help me reach new people who have not heard of Reason and Theology and haven't heard this take and this approach and this perspective. All they've heard is the stuff in the secular media or even in a lot of Catholic media sources that just hasn't been accurate. All right, that's going to do it. Hit the like button while you're at it too, and leave a comment in the comment section. Also check me out, patreon.com/Reason and Theology if you want to support the show. God bless. Are you a Catholic thinking about converting to Eastern Orthodoxy? Or are you a Protestant discerning whether or not to become Catholic or Eastern Orthodox? If so, I have the book just for you. It's called Answering Orthodoxy, and engages all of the arguments that Eastern Orthodox use against the Catholic Church. I respond to all of them. I show that they are in error, and in fact, they're inconsistent. because the things that Orthodox are objecting to are in fact found in their own tradition. So the fullness of the faith can only be found in the Catholic Church. Check out the book right now at shop.catholic.com for your copy today. Hey everybody, just wanted to tell you about my new free ebook, Church Chaos, Biblical Insights for Confused Catholics. If you are a confused Catholic and you're thinking about leaving the Catholic Church, or you're thinking about converting to the church, but you see that there's a crisis in the church and you're just unsure, this is the book for you. Again, it is free. Just simply go to reasonandtheology.com. You'll see a pop-up that comes up on your screen. Just simply click on it and you'll put in your email and it will provide you the free PDF ebook right then and there. Please check it out if you're confused about the situation in the Catholic Church today. reasonandtheology.com. Are you confused about how Catholic teaching authority works? With encyclicals, papal bulls, councils, and many other things, it's easy to get confused on what is authoritative and what is not. Fortunately, at maximusinstitute.com, I have prepared a course explaining the magisterium from A to Z. Visit the website and check out the course Understanding the Magisterium for more information.